everybody, and welcome to the Barcoding-Huddle. I'm your host, Jody Costa, the VP of Marketing and Strategic Partnerships for Barcoding Incorporated. Barcoding is a supply chain automation and innovation company helping organizations like yours become more efficient, accurate, and connected. And it's not very often that I get to be surrounded by true legends in our industry for a very, very surprising and fun huddle that's coming up. I'm very thankful for all of the gentlemen who have decided to join me on today's huddle, and I hope that all of you listening will get a ton of value from the conversation we're about to have. So thank you again, and panelists, if you wouldn't mind, show your faces and join me on camera. Hello. Oh, lovely, lovely, lovely. Thank you all very, very much. It's a pleasure to see you, and thank you for being on the Barcoding Huddle. All right,
Glad to be here.
Let's jump in. I know that there's a lot to cover, and I know this crew, this I think is our largest huddle ever, so congrats to that. But thank you, Jim Hilton, for pulling together this amazing collection of minds. And what we're gonna do today, we're gonna cover a lot of ground. We're gonna cover different types of industries, but ultimately we really wanna bring you some of what we're seeing coming up ahead in 2024, and also how we think that companies like yours can really benefit from some of the technology and the thoughts that are coming from each of these guys' areas of expertise. We're going to give you some trending, but we're also going to give you some practical advice and some best practices. So without further ado, we're going to start with introductions. You already know who I am, so we're going to jump in. I'll call on each of you. If you don't mind, introduce yourself, but give us a little bit more. Give us that extra. Kind of give your contributions to the industry, some of your work history, some of the things that you're most proud of or that you want to share. That will help give us a really good grounding for the conversation we're about to have. So, Jim, since you brought the team together, I'm going to start with you.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it and glad to be here. Thanks for helping us coordinate this. For those that don't know me, Jim Hilton. My career in this world goes back, you can kind of look at it in 3 chapters. The first one being around what we would call the end user, from being an actual user in mobility, field mobility, to being that customer that would deploy that. And then second part to the second chapter of that, I decided that early adoption around 1990 was going to be something that would catch on, that last mile delivery that was always manual. And so I went into the software world developing for the market, and then joined the dark side of Symbol, Motorola, Zebra on the hardware side, and kind of spend my time these days cutting across all 3 areas of that: end user, provider, hardware.
Awesome. Well, again, appreciate you bringing the legends together. Thank you for kind of your long time business and friendship. So thanks for being here, Jim. Frank, you're up in my upper left-hand corner. So how about we get an introduction from you?
Sure. Frank Riso, and I started my career in a supermarket industry, and from there got involved in putting in some of the first barcode scanning stores in supermarkets, far back maybe as 1976. And then from there, got involved with putting in several more stores with that, and ultimately got responsibility for all kinds of retail automation going into stores. I then went into sales, selling software for about 5 years before, as Jim calls it, the dark side. I always call it my best for Symbol, Motorola, which is now Zebra, putting in handheld computers, but representing the company in doing that and getting to talk to retailers globally, which was a fabulous part of the career. I also represented the company at the National Retail Federation, NRF, as a member of their associate board, did a lot of work and volunteer with information for FMI, and ultimately worked my way at Symbol to have responsibility for all of retail industry marketing globally. So that was the better part of my career. And I've watched The industry go from barcoding through technology and computers actually in the stores, all the way to today where we're looking at not only barcoding but RFID, AI, and all kinds of internet connections for what goes on in the store. So that's about it.
I love it. Thank you, Frank. And you're one of the reasons why we celebrate annually National Barcode Day. So it turns out I have you to thank for helping me start that holiday. So, all right, Mark, how about you? Let's go for Mark next.
Sure. Mark Wheeler, my career split pretty much in half between IBM and Symbol Moto Zebra. And with IBM, I started out actually in an equipment engineering group, and we were designing, building, and deploying robotic solutions to different IBM plants internally. So semiconductor, card assembly, final assembly. And then from there into consulting and systems integration, where I kind of got into supply chain and warehouse, distribution network optimization. And we were doing automated warehouse, design and build for our customers, many of whom it was their first experience with a true real-time automated warehouse. And then into Symbol Moto Zebra, where, like a lot of my colleagues here on the call, joined a group that at the time was called ISG, but essentially subject matter expert for our various areas. We're supporting mainly sales, but also product and marketing. And then for myself, more recently, corporate strategy. So it's been an absolute blast. Probably 3/4 of that time I've been on the road, visiting customers, working with customers in a pretty detailed way. And that's been the best part, just to see how every business has their way of making a buck, their way of differentiating in the market. And you can kind of see operationally the things that they in particular have to do well to make that business strategy effective. And for me, what I've seen is, the dreams that we had 30 years ago for robotics and supply chain are now becoming a reality because of the advance in technology and, at a sensor level and motors and batteries and all those things kind of coming together. So that's very exciting.
That's awesome. Well, it's great to see your face again. I've enjoyed working with you. And I know you've had a lot of warehouses under your belt in your day. So glad that you can bring your expertise to the table. Michael, how about we go to you next? And
Hi, Mike Maris here. And I think as it's been described, a lot of my background is very similar to the other legends here, if you will. Really got my career started in what we thought of as a hypermarket before a hypermarket was actually well known. It was Meijer, Meijer, out of Michigan. I think we had less than 20 stores when I'm there, and I think they're about 250 stores plus now, and over $17 billion in sales. But running warehouses and talk about automation, we actually had an automated case dropping product called an SI Ordermatic, which was kind of the new way of getting around automation, if you will, from selectors. But proceeded from that, we actually got involved, just as Frank, with putting barcodes in the warehouse. So having something that printed out labels that came out of a Intermec printer that went dark after a few months because you didn't realize that they would actually fade away, to putting in scanners in all those warehouses. So from there, though, I did come over and enjoyed getting involved with software and went into warehouse automation, delivering that throughout the world. Did a stint with a company called DSG, Descartes System Group, where that's where Jim and I really met up, where we did transportation delivery, and I was doing that globally with a large team that was actually doing those implementations. And then had a couple of years with a company called Kinaxis, which does manufacturing planning and automation, which is a good way to kind of blend all these different tasks together, if you will, these different types of organization. And then same as Frank and everybody else, got involved with Symbol, which was really kind of a nice way to go from operations to software to hardware. And having a global operation there is a great opportunity to see that not everybody does things the same way, which that's what I always thought coming out of the company I started with. There's a lot of different ways to make things work and work properly. And those three things that I see that are really changing the world right now, obviously, is the problems that we're having with labor, automation, as Mark was talking about, how automation is changing things. And then obviously artificial intelligence, something that we all know that we played with years ago at Symbol, Motorola, and Zebra, but how it's actually coming into its own now and how it's being used. And it's not really a scary thing. It's something that we should all look to actually enjoy having it and helping us in our operations.
Love it. Thank you so much, Michael, for being here and for kind of outlining a few of the topics we'll most likely cover today. So I appreciate that. And Ralph, my favorite for last, should I say that?
Thank you very much.
I'm
Ralph Lieberthal, and like the other gentleman here, we have a similar background. Mine comes from software. I started as in a company called Rocho International. It was a startup company, and we became the leader in vehicle routing, optimization, and scheduling. And I spent half my career there and my other half with the manufacturer, Symbol, Motorola, Zebra. And as Mike said, it was a very good combination of being able to, they're two parts of the same coin, right? You can't have one without the other. You can't have software without the hardware. You can't have hardware without the software. So all of us were able to bring those capabilities together into providing solutions through our partner community to soup to nuts for our customers. And it was a lot of fun. As I think Frank said earlier, and Mike, the global aspect was very exciting to me because we saw things we had never seen before, and we were able to relay them or balance them to what we saw in this country, and vice versa. So that was a very exciting part of it. I think what we're looking at today, I think labor. We have a very strong union environment coming on, and which is, I'm not no comment on it, but it's there. It's making things more expensive. So what do? We have to introduce better new technology. That's always the answer, and we have a lot of things happening in that area. The robotics, which Mike and I'm sure Mark will talk about, but in addition, there's I come from vehicle routing and optimization. The whole AI, artificial intelligence is a great opportunity. When I got involved, we always wanted to do the routing and optimization, but AI provides you that background of historical data to be able to put into the modeling now that we weren't able to do. Okay, we knew it was there. We didn't have the computer power. We didn't have the ability to have the data, historical data. Think about how you can use historical data when you're doing routing and vehicle optimization and also network planning. Okay, where should I put a warehouse? With the data that's available and AI capabilities, it's going to totally change how the industry looks at things.
Well, I think that's a great segue. So thank you so much, Legends. Obviously, I didn't lie when I said I brought the powerhouse team to the table for this huddle for you today. You mentioned, you all have deep expertise in what we affectionately call the AIDC industry, right? The automatic identification data capture industry. Data capture itself, I think it started with that advent of that first commercial scan barcode, June 26, 1974, Frank. That's the date. I know it because I started that day. But yes, let's talk about in the immediate future. I mean, we're looking at 2024, maybe just beyond. What do you guys see? And this will be the first discussion question. What do you guys see as kind of maybe tie together some of the themes you've brought about? What's the future of that data capture industry looking like? What are we seeing in terms of how this industry is going to go, and how does that impact the companies who rely on us? So
who goes first?
Jim.
I'll go first. I get to go first. That way these guys won't steal my ideas, or if they do, they'll have to change the words. First of all, before I go there, think about this team all together every day on meetings every week, and actually the value prop that this kind of intellectual property took to the end user. It was just impressive. Kind of on the comical side of it, it was almost sometimes when we would sit in meetings, I likened it to that Austin Powers movie where he says, "Tell them what you do," and you throw a hat or something. But anyway, that's it. So my perspective is generally starts and foundation is around field mobility. And so if you think about the line of business applications or the use cases, field service, direct store delivery, proof of delivery, merchandising, and then the segments that those all might float into. The biggest concern I've got is if you look back at the last 10 or 15 years where those lifestyle software developers sold out, consolidation occurred. On the defensive side, if I were the customer right now, I'd be concerned with those legacy software applications. They were built in times long before cloud. In many cases, the ever connected didn't exist. Certainly AI didn't exist.
Right.
And in every one of those cases, the support is retiring. And I see this countless times in my continued travels right now. So if I were on your customer side, I'd kind of be taking a look at the software that's running and candidly the hardware that was applied or acquired with that software. Literally in the last week, I've counted 2 conversations with end customers that when they developed their software, they didn't think they needed a wide area device. They saved a few bucks with a Wi-Fi only device. And yet the applications that they're looking at requires always connected, requires them to always be connected to the cloud or they won't operate. That's going to be 1,000 knife cuts over the next 12, 24, 36 months, I think. So there's a negative that I'm concerned about. On the positive side, if you can get past that, AI, if we'd had AI in 1982, grocery shelves would have, your DSD providers would have had a much better distribution into those grocery shelves because that route book would have not have to have been used. AI, I'd love to be developing DSD software today with those kind of tools. I think that's a positive, and the cloud-based architecture that would give that data and give that access to that data in a ready manner. It's pretty cool.
So there's probably 2 things I want to touch on. One is that as far as ADC and what's available, we've had discussions over the years on RFID. I think it's funny, I was going over some notes. 12 years ago, I was involved with Barcoding Inc., and we did a seminar online, and we talked about RFID. And I think that, it's finally here. I mean, there's a lot of companies they're not doing pilots, they're doing rollouts, and they're doing implementation. And it's very important that the time is spent and you're working with somebody and to be able to help you through that process. But the real issue I think I learned at least through RFID was that when companies were looking to implement it, they were looking at it, I'll call it almost as a subcomponent of their enterprise. And so when they tried to do an ROI, it was very difficult to do an ROI. Mm-hmm. So a lesson learned, I think, is for anything moving forward with technology. Technology is really, the rewards are high, but getting it working properly are difficult, is to look across your whole supply chain to see how that technology can be leveraged across the chain, not just in subverticals. Because if you're going to try to justify something in a subvertical, that's going to be very difficult, and it's going to corner, lock you into areas. And so that's me getting on my soapbox. The other thing, and you're going to hear a lot on AI today, and obviously, and I touched on it earlier. In my business, transportation logistics, it was always, predictive analytics. Okay, that's the term we use, predictive analytics. Well, they changed. Now it's called predictive AI, right? It hasn't changed. Again, as I stated earlier, the power, as Jim said, the power is now available to take advantage of the data and our knowledge to be able to take advantage of AI. Companies really need to take a look at it. As Jim said, software is getting older. I was in vehicle routing optimization. Most of those systems out there today They'll say they're working with AI. Come on, it's still working with heuristic algorithms. Okay,
Yep.
it's still heuristic algorithms. I think you're going to see some of the new companies leverage AI, and that's real important in network planning and all that. So
I like what you're saying, Ralph, about things being pretty much the same. Even in the stores, I mean, we're still trying to sell stuff for a little bit more than we bought it for and make a profit. But again, with AI or other types of technology today, there is so much data. I don't know who can use it, and that's where the AI is taking over.
right.
We used to like the fact that the barcode would tell us how many bottles of whatever sold in a particular day or at a particular hour. And now, if you look at RFID, we can actually tell you where you bought it and when, because the technology isn't the same barcode on every bottle, but a different RFID tag on each bottle. So every item becomes unique. So as we're trying to continue managing people and product, people being both the customers as well as store staff and store management, all wrapped around this inventory we want to sell for a profit. So retailing, even though it's the same, technology has made it so very, very different. And going forward, with all the information you have, you can't do anything. What we want software to do is to tell us what to do. And that's what we see as the future coming down the road.
And building off of that, it's obvious that, and touching on Jim and Craig's area, just what you talked about, when Coke machines can tell you when they're running low on Sprite or they're running low on, Diet Coke, and they're millions of miles away, if you will, from their distribution plant, kind of shows how we've gotten used to that technology. But to back up again, barcodes seem to be such a big deal back to everybody in the 70s and 80s because they didn't really understand what they did. And nowadays, everything you've got's got a barcode on it. We've kind of proceeded into QR codes, and anybody that's ordered anything from Amazon or any place else that has a phone in the grocery store, they're using the QR code to get information above and beyond what's able to be printed on a can. But really what we see there is a logical progression I think your customers need to think about too, is that's all been good to get point of sale and information from a very specific area. But then as we moved into RFID, we wanted to see where stuff was moving, touching on what Ralph was talking about, looking at a package that's being read as it's going from a warehouse into a distribution facility, into the back of a UPS truck. Being able to capture that data automatically has been one of the credits of starting out with a barcode, of being able to have that information, knowing where things are at and where it's going. And then what I'd really push people to start thinking about is what we've commonly thought about was facial recognition, but it's recognition of looking at containers to be able to tell I've got green beans that are French cut, and I've got green beans that are regular green beans, and I don't need to scan a barcode. I can look at it and AI can tell me what it is. So as you start progressing through this, I think you need to look at those technologies that are going to be able to enable the ability to capture data quicker and to give you better information about it. It's just not green beans, it's French or regular.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll just wrap it up, I guess. Completely agree. When you look at the labor challenge combined with the way the business models are evolving, so everybody's got to operate with generally greater speed, greater precision, greater visibility, and do so with either less labor, or try to build your systems and your processes so that somebody can come in off the street and be productive right away, can be accurate right away, and use technology to do that. So you can do that with mobility, and doing mobility right and doing it really well with wearables and easy to use and all that. You can do it with mechanization. You can physically automate tasks away from the workers. We can make their work less physically demanding. We can automate out the non-value add tasks and let the people do what they do best. And finally, what we've all been kind of touching on is sensors. So you can leverage sensors to automatically error-proof tasks, provide visibility to inventory, provide visibility to processes, and perhaps de-skill certain jobs and still get really good results. The fact is, doing that is really, really hard. So we have barcodes, we have machine vision that's being applied in lots of new and interesting ways, and we have RFID. Each of those technologies has capabilities, but also limitations. I think machine vision and RFID in particular can be very complementary. But to find a solution provider that can bring all of that expertise to the point of activity and solve an operational problem, that's an opportunity for solution providers out there to be able to do that.
And Mark hits on a very good point about technology and how it's to be used. I was on the team at Zebra when we convinced Southwest Airlines that they should go to scanning bags because they felt they did a really good job with it. So it's convincing your customers to understand what they don't know and how much that technology can help bring them, maybe not so much in labor control, but in customer service. And I think that's a big part of what we're talking about too, is how much information of that can actually be used by the end customer and help them out with finding their bag or whatever the case may be.
I didn't want to break up the conversation, but this is all awesome. I think that, I've started to take a couple notes. I'd be curious if we start to hone in from this bigger conversation, which was great, future of the industry, what we're kind of seeing out there. If we start to look a little bit of a tighter time frame, so we're starting to look specifically at next year or 2024. If you're watching this, where do you guys see? And I think some of this has been touched upon, but I'd like to go back to it. Where do you see the most value for Barcoding's end customers, organizations out there that are looking to deal with some of these macro trends of labor challenges, inflation, and all these other things that are on their plate to become more efficient, accurate, connected? Where do you see that very immediate opportunity, and how should companies think about attacking that? So Mark, you were last time. Why not be first this time?
Fair enough. Yeah. It's a really interesting time in the industry, and a highly disruptive time with technology. There's it's almost a land grab going on between the WMS provider and the traditional WCS providers as to who's going to kind of control the future. As you look at, you're not going to have that. We picked our WMS provider. Now we're going to pick a WCS provider, and then we're going to just kind of let these boxes integrate or interface to each other, right? There's going to be robotic tasks and manual tasks and sensor-based data that all has to be integrated in real time and re-optimized in real time for a more complex operation. And who's going to own that? Everybody wants to own that. So I think part of the challenge is to figure out for your particular business, what are the key technologies that you need to incorporate into your operation, and how are you going to structure that so that you not only get the capability that you need, but you also have the flexibility over time. So maybe you can maintain competition between vendors because you're not locked in at a robotics level, or you can isolate impact to your WMS because you've made certain solutions or certain let's say architectural decisions at the WCS level. I think that's really a very strategic set of decisions that have to be made about how you're going to incorporate this technology into your infrastructure.
Other thoughts from the group?
We get to keep talking. Let me talk. There we go.
You get to keep talking.
Actually, I think and again, my mind starts in the field and works backwards back into the warehouse operation. Actionable visibility is critical. And when I mean actionable, that doesn't mean that cliche real-time connectivity. It is element level, putting the data in front of the person that needs to see the data while they can still do something about it. Now, depending on what that data is, that's right now, as quickly as it can get from that mobile device to in front of the operator, wherever that operator is, back at the warehouse to fulfill it or whatever. In other cases, it can wait till later. So communications is absolutely critical going forward. I think if I were on the customer side today, I would start with what kind of data do I need to have where, and just how timely must that be? Because all of it's possible. It's just going to have architectural conditions, and it's going to have some, in some cases, cost conditions.
Yeah, I think Mark touched on it earlier also. We mentioned visibility. That's not new to us. That started, we've been in this business in a long time, and we've always strived for visibility. When we mean visibility, we mean not just of the products going through the supply chain, but all our assets, right? To be able to manage. You can't manage your stuff if you don't know where it is. And I think that with the new technologies, we talked about RFID, we talked about computer vision, and what AI puts on top of that, visibility becomes even more available if possible. That's such a phrase, but I think that's key to being able to move forward. Again, we used the term when we were in the middle of our careers, the Amazon effect, right? It was speed, visibility, and customers, benefit, and that hasn't changed. That hasn't changed at all. It's there, and those are the issues too. We have new and better technology to get there. Again, what Mark said, now you got to be smart enough to how to put it together. And
yeah,
that, yeah.
Well, I think the same as we're talking about in retail as well. But just looking at what retailers think and do, I mean, many of them use cash registers for 10, 15 years. It's the same with their hardware and software that they have in the stores. So I would look at what software they have or what hardware they have, and are they looking to upgrade or change it? And if they are, what else should it be doing? What else can it be doing? What software updates can we do, or even total revamps to make that happen? How does that impact going back to headquarters and what kind of software they're running and what kind of things they want to do at the store level too? Now, we all know the technology. We all have different levels of technology. And then secondly, looking at progressive retailers, those who really want to step out on the edge of a limb and see what kind of things they can learn and do. Those are the areas that I typically would start with in a new year, is understanding where my customer wants to go from a retail standpoint, and let them also know what others are doing. People don't like to do, besides the progressive grocers, the rest don't like to do things on their own. They much rather be able to do what somebody else is doing, especially if they want to compete with them.
Yeah, having been part of this group, one of the things we've had the ability to do is to get together and talk a lot of different ideas. But the one thing I can say, having been in the industry, and I think that goes for all of us, is that history has a tendency to repeat itself. And what I mean by that is the problems that we had several years ago, we're probably having again right now. And I think back pre-COVID and then into COVID, once product got to the United States, we knew what to do with it. But in between here in China or here in Vietnam or wherever it was coming into, we had no idea. And I think we've all grown accustomed to routing systems like Waze that can tell us that, hey, there's an accident up ahead. You may want to divert over. I think we're going to see a lot more of that with shipping as to, hey, I was supposed to go into the port of Long Beach, but they're all backed up. There's 100 tankers out there ready to come in. Why don't you go down around South America and deliver it, to Jacksonville, Florida? So those are the kind of things that AI, I think, are bringing to us that we can use in a routing and scheduling. And then back to the labor side of it is, how do I get that stuff off the boat? How do I get it onto a truck, and where do I get it? How do I get it to where it needs to go? And I think that's all one continuous stream that has to be played together. And I think, like Mark mentioned, machine visioning can do that a lot quicker than what we could do in times past. So I would encourage customers to look at how they can start using some of the newer technologies to get them to where they want to go.
And a lot of that technology replaces labor or replaces what labor they can't go. I mean, you can't go into a retail store today without, where it used to say push or pull on the door, it now says help wanted.
Yeah, no, for real. And that's, it's kind of interesting. I think about, especially in the retail and also kind of into the food retail space, with compliance initiatives coming out, it's not enough just to look, you have to look internally, your own processes, of course, for improvement. I love what was touched upon, like look at those legacy applications and hardware as a starting place. Look at the data that you need as a starting place. Look at the people and look at your customers and what they need. But more than ever, you also have to look at the other ends of your chain, right? You don't exist in that silo, right? You've got to look across and see how that data is flowing across the board, even if that's something that maybe necessarily you don't own or that you've never thought about influencing before, which I think is something that I've seen in my growth here at the industry.
Or if you don't have the data, who has it?
Who has
that
it?
Can get it to you, who can share it with you. And I think that back to what Mike was mentioning on, the extreme in the shipping, where infrastructure modeling, network modeling it's perfect. AI, I can't get into Long Beach. There's going to be 50, 100 ships there. What do I do? Take it down to another port? Do I put it on a rail somewhere? I think that's what we're going to see, and that's the big, that's the way out. Those are the big guys that are doing that. That's not the regular guys who are worried about the last mile, right? But the guys that are really worried about that, getting that stuff to the States, they're going to be looking at big modeling
and rerouting it to where it's needed. If Seattle needs it more than what New York does, you want to get it to Seattle, right? So, the whole idea around AI, I think, has a great benefit in the supply chain business.
Yeah,
great opportunity for the rails.
It does as well. Inside the four walls, it's going to take some time, but you think about, billions of times a day that inventory is received, put away, counted, picked, packed, shipped. And typically in every one of those steps, we've got a person confirming that, yeah, it's the right item, it's the right quantity, it's not damaged, it's packed properly. We ought to be able to do that with sensors, and we ought to be able to do that fairly soon with sensors, but it's not going to be easy, and it's going to require AI, and it's going to require, a model that's trained on the right data and that's maintained over time. And a different way of thinking about some of these solutions that have been really very stable for a long time. WMSs haven't changed it that much in a long time. So,
yeah, even in retail, when we're talking beyond food to fashion retail, do we just get one selling season out of a particular product, or can we get two if we know what color is more attractive than another color, or and sizes wise? So you've got not only color, size, and style, but everything needs to be in the store at the same time, because you're competing with, unfortunately, the type of success Amazon is having with the particular retailer. And that's like every retailer today, not just one particular retailer. Starting in books, now they're actually opening up their own supermarkets. So it's a very competitive world, but knowing, like you said, the data and who owns the data, and can we use that data as a marketing tool, as a selling tool, are all the types of challenges retailers are seeing in all aspects of retailing.
Yeah, there's these twin towers I kind of think about at barcoding, right? So how do we use technology to improve that end customer's experience, right? That's ultimately drive that loyalty and that growth. And then also, how do we use technology to improve that employee, or that internal user experience, right? It's because of the labor crunch. Talk to me maybe about your perspective on the customer side. So we're getting consumer pressures next year. We've got to do everything we can to help that consumer have the best experience possible. How do technologies that you're seeing within the data capture space, how do you see that kind of coming to fruition or starting to develop?
In store level, just being able to recognize a customer, know what a customer is looking for. In the fashion industry, when we talk about a men's store or a ladies shop, there's the concept of the sales book, or black book as it's called, where we know who our customers are, what their styles are, what the colors they like, and what sizes, even know when their birthdays are, and so we can call them up and bring them into a shop. That's something a company like an Amazon is not able to do, and that helps a lot with that end consumer. So recognition. We actually used to talk about the technology that Wi-Fi could actually identify a unique MAC address, meaning your phone. So if your phone was on Wi-Fi, you could identify it. Again, you're getting into a significant amount of data, but knowing who the customer is as they walk into the store and saying, "Hi, Mr. Jones," or "Hi, Mrs. Smith," adds a lot to that consumer. Being in stock with the product is most important. The right price for the product is important, and all those factors go into how we look at that end consumer. And again, the end consumer has a phone; they can check prices anywhere they want. We have to be able to deal with that, and maybe even in areas where we're selling appliances, being able to negotiate price as opposed to what it says on the sign.
Love it. So
if I can add a kind of a different perspective on that, if you look at the user as the end customer, and the audience here essentially has employees and they'd like to not have an attrition problem. Labor is labor issues come, in my view, in two ways. Number one, a labor shortage, but the other is the attrition of having someone job hop. I can remember one instance in a warehouse district where the tools provided, the technology provided to the employees, because rates were what they were, attrition would happen by simply a warehouse worker being able to go across the street, quit here, join a new company over across the street at a different warehouse, simply because they had better technology, better tools. And that's kind of a tough position to be in if I'm not thinking about making sure my technology is advanced and keeping it moving. If I'm trying to sweat that asset for another 2 years or 1 year and so forth, there's an impact to the end user with that. And oftentimes it can turn into attrition.
Yeah, I read an article a few years back where the largest retailer in the country, obviously, is Walmart, and they're hiring somewhere in the neighborhood of 800,000 retail employees a year just to handle turnover. That's a lot of people.
No doubt. And that crosses every company. That's for sure. We're seeing that across the board. So if I had to put my chips on one strategy for next year in terms of kind of maybe operational excellence, whether that's to improve a process, improve kind of labor retention, get better visibility into data, attack legacy systems, whatever the case may be. If I had to put you on the spot and say, you got to put your chips into one area for next year, where are you placing that bet? Ralph, start with you.
It's I hate to say this. I would say RFID, just because it's a proven technology. We all know the benefits of it. And I'm a supply chain guy. I like the idea of being able to see visibility from the beginning, from the raw material all the way through to the customer, and nothing else does that better. And it allows for high productivity, better customer satisfaction, benefits. I sound like a broken record when I say it, I know, but if I'm going to grab something that's proven, all the other stuff is great. As I said earlier, predictive analytics, you got to be looking at it, but it's not there yet. Okay. For my business, it will be in the next couple of years, but if I got to do something now, that's probably what I would do.
Awesome. Michael, how about you?
Well, yeah, data is everything, right? And the whole lack of labor and somebody to sit down and to take that data and make sense out of it. I think it really, I think what we'll see people needing to do is self-service data, if you will, or self-service analytics. Is how can I provide them the tool or give them the tools or help them produce the tools that will allow them to be able to get the data they want and use it effectively.
Hey, Mark, how about you? Where are you placing your bet?
Well, I'd ask the customer first to identify priorities in terms of what and how. So the what for a warehouse is, what do I have to do? What do I have to accomplish day in, day out, week in, week out? So those are the external stakeholders, the most important ones being customers, but also the CFO, regulatory agencies. Those are non-negotiable. And then the how is how you do that. You can do that with a lot of labor. You can do it with a lot of technology. Is your technology strategy aligned with the business strategy? I think that's much that is the first step before you decide what technology is going to help me accomplish my goals. Being very, very clear about what my goals are and where we stand. And to Ralph's point about RFID, I think RFID is phenomenal if you can make it work in your particular supply chain, which for some has been kind of a closed supply chain where you have a power player and you can tag at source and you get that benefit all the way through. And we see that in quick service restaurants and things like that, where it can be very, very effective. And there are some where that won't be an opportunity. But to me, it's really stepping back and understanding what you're trying to do.
Yeah. Just real quickly, Mark makes a real good point about helping the customer get to where they want to be. They don't always know where they should be, and they'll tell you where they think they should be. But in actuality, we've had enough experience of being in so many different customer sites that we know what they should be doing. But getting that off to them and getting them to understand that is often a challenge that you get to do and selling the product to them. But that's a big part of it.
Well, I laughed because I got a sense of personality types. Ralph placed that bet right away, and Mark you kind of hedged.
Well, I agree with Mark that you have to, but
engineer
as I said at the outset that I'm looking across the chain, and if you're going to put something in, visibility to me is the most important thing. You can do so much with visibility, and RFID gives that to you. I don't have another technology today. I mean, there's sensors that can add to the RFID and things like that, but I think people come. I will tell you, in the transportation, so the last mile, you're going to see it this year. There are companies, I know, very large companies that are working on that, and you're going to see it implemented. You're going to be surprised by it too, I think.
I think in retail, I could probably use the same term, the last mile, but it's the consumer. What can they do to satisfy that consumer? Because, a very happy consumer tells one person, an unhappy person tells 36 people. However, today with TikTok, Facebook, and Twitter, they can tell thousands of people and destroy everything a retailer has done for their goodwill in a matter of seconds with technology. So again, ensuring that the technology you have, the systems you have, the software you have, does everything it can to help that consumer. Obviously, you're helping the retailer at the same time, would be, again, my first bet for next year.
Love it. Jim, we'll end with you. Where are you placing those chips?
I'm going to, both positive and negative, I'm going to say that my answer is going to be focused on the food movers. Okay. You've seen me present, so it's kind of an obsession of mine. So you start with FSMA Rule 204 or 2002, when the first Food Safety Act came out, 2002. It's been kind of like watching grass grow between 2002 and 2022. But December 2022, the final FDA Rule 204 came out that effectively laid out the traceability rules from farm through the supply chain to that end customer, whether it's center plate, whether it's in the grocery store, or wherever that final resting place ended up being for we consumers to touch it. If I hung up from this webcast and I'm a food mover, I'd assign somebody to getting that company in compliance proactively, not reactively, because the rule's out, and they have until the end of 2025 to get compliant with it. And it's not as easy as it looks to get there.
That's great.
I hope they've been working on it, because it's been out. We knew it was going to come out a couple of years ago. I hope they've been looking at it.
No, we don't need to deal with that quite yet. So great strategies. Thank you guys for weighing in on that. Obviously, Barcoding Inc., we want to be that solution provider, integrator of choice. As you've been listening to this conversation, we are here to help you, but we're also, we're realistic. There are certain attributes of what makes a good partner for you. And I actually want to take this time to go around the horn. Maybe give me your 2 cents. You guys have been in the industry a while. You know what makes a good partner for an organization out there. What are some of the attributes or some of the things you'd be looking for if you were a end customer, if you were running a large retailer, a large 3PL? what kinds of things would you be looking for in an integrator coming into next year? What kinds of attributes? What would things maybe that are non-negotiable? Give us a couple pieces of feedback. Don't have to go crazy with it, but what would be on your mind? What kind of advice would you give?
Experience.
Yeah,
I've done it before.
Experience and the willingness and even enthusiasm for understanding my business. Spending the time to go out and walk the floor and understand operationally what we're trying to do. I think that's job one.
And I'd say, help me get the best of breed technology, not just something that you might have in your hip pocket that you've known for a long time, but help me get the right technology to manage my business where I want to take it.
And that gets back to what Mark said. The idea that you got to walk the floor, you got to walk the talk, you got to see it, you got to understand what the customer's trying to do.
I think that's been our success, is the fact that we come from the floor and we can see things that maybe a typical salesperson is not going to. The other aspect of how companies can help, it's support, training, just not dumping a bunch of hardware or hardware and software on a particular retailer, but showing them how to use it. And the fact that you're going to be there when they have troubles is very important, especially to a retailer who, again, has labor issues or the cost of labor. They're not going to hire a bunch of trainers to run around unless you're somebody like a Walmart who does things very differently.
Yeah, don't shortcut training. I think we've all learned that, right?
Yeah.
You have a project and at the end, you just dump it on the end user or whatever, and that just doesn't work. And retraining, you bring new people in, you got to train them.
And Jody, I'm a big barcoding fan, but to one thing, I forget how many months or years you've had it out, but it really says a lot. Your Go Live, Stay Live programs, that speaks to almost everything that the guys have just talked about. And if you add to the idea that having the intellectual property within your set of experts that can walk the floor, that can spot the problems when no one else is seeing those problems, is to me, it's a requirement to choose an integrator, someone that appreciates the importance of that and then delivers the result for it.
Well,
and I think one thing too is making sure your customers, that you know them well enough that you don't try to give them too much technology that they're going to suffer under. It's help lead them to what they need to get it done, not necessarily what the greatest and best are doing.
They might not be ready for parts.
Exactly.
And you have to tell them they're not ready.
Yep.
Mark's heard me do that many times.
I've heard you do that many times.
Well, I think that's the key, right? It has to be, these days, it has to be a partnership. That's certainly something that we strive for in our business, and as we continue to look for the future with our customers, that business relationship, the curiosity, the willingness to learn, the willingness to listen, the willingness to step up and speak up when need to, right? I think all those things point to a really good relationship. So this has been amazing. I feel like this hour went so fast. I can hardly believe it. I wanted to, kind of close with you guys telling stories about each other, but
you sure? Yeah, dangerous.
But, I thought a little bit better of it. So I thought maybe instead we could go around and maybe just give a quick story, a little highlight, something that was really special or meaningful in your career. And if you want to throw in a story about a fellow legend, you're more than welcome to. But let's keep it clean, and let's keep it to something that really resonated with you in your career, something that was really meaningful that you feel that you'd be willing to share with our audience today. So I'll give you a second.
I'll start with I'm already ready. I've got it.
Go ahead, Jim.
In fact, I just touched on it. I cannot count the number of times, if we knew Ralph was going into an account, that we would go out ahead of that meeting and let the customer be warned that Ralph's going to come in and tell them whatever it is that he's got on his mind about them, even if they don't like it, and probably especially if they didn't like it.
They'll love it. Well, that's good. I mean, that's what people need to hear, right? I mean, Ralph,
Well,
I'll let you go next if you want.
To defend myself. No, Mark will tell you this. Mark and I, we were in a meeting together once. Mark, you remember we were at when Michigan Avenue Motorola. I forget the customer, and Mark presented and I presented, and we walk out of the room, and Mark said to me, "You just called the customer. You called them ugly. You called a baby ugly." I said, "Yeah." I said, "But that was the truth, right?" Yeah.
Well, and they thank you for it.
Yeah, that's right, and they thank me for it. And let me tell you something, as a a partner or provider, those are the customers you love. They come back to you.
Yeah.
Because you told them where they stood, and when they were ready. I don't want to tell you how many sales guys I piss off. Anyway,
I once had the opportunity to present to a retailer a new technology for self-checkout, and they asked me, what are the benefits? And I said, we actually don't know because we haven't really installed it yet. And the retailer told me that bit of honesty is what made them want to do it.
Yeah.
That was pretty.
There's nothing like being upfront, especially in our industry. Okay. In our industry, people expect that. And more importantly, they expect things to go wrong because things are out of control. And it's how you recover, right? How do you help them get through that day or that whatever? And I think that's what I always loved about this industry, is that you're really affecting stuff going on day to day.
I love that. Cool. How about you? What do you want to kind of bring up? Something meaningful from your career or with the legends here on the call?
Who's that one too? I'll take that one, I guess, unless Jim had something. I didn't know if that was me or not, but
no,
I think probably some of the interesting things is traveling with these guys internationally, to see how our international customers would stand in awe of the information that we would have. And most of it, we'd lived and died with it every day. So this was all new to a lot of those folks out there. I guess that was probably the most impressive part, was to be able to travel internationally with these guys and to hear them talk and to see how the customers would really buy into what they're saying.
Yeah. All right, I've got to add one more. I've got to add one. Yeah, one more. As he said the word international, so I get to say this. So how I learned warehouse was I asked Mark to go with me into Venezuela to an account. And as we learned at the end of our visit, the cereal plant was being nationalized in the other room while we were presenting our closing remarks in this room. And as we left there, Mark says, "Don't ever ask me to come down here."
Yeah,
you're lucky you got to go home.
Yeah, that was a very memorable trip for many, many reasons. But I think what I enjoyed the most, in retrospect, was you could spend a couple hours with a customer looking at their operation, and even if it's a company you never heard of before, have a pretty good idea of whether they were going to do well or do poorly. And it wouldn't be unusual to come away with a bad impression and hear a year or two later that they're out of business, or a good impression and hear a year or two later that they just became a unicorn. So that's part of the I think a real privilege that this job was for a lot of years, to work with so many customers.
Agree.
Awesome. Well, I really think each and every one of you guys have been a bright light on my barcoding huddle, and I appreciate the time and the expertise that you've shared here today. Obviously, Barcoding Inc., we want to bring this type of information to you. Thanks to everyone for spending their time. If you learned something today, you want to share a story about one of these legends with me, encouraging that, you can go to barcoding.com. There's a little contact form. You can reach out to us that way. You can always email me directly. A lot of you get my emails, so feel free to email me directly. I definitely take any and all stories. Just going to put that out there one more time. But we are here to help. So Barcoding Inc., we are here. We want to be that provider for you that can help listen, walk the walk, walk the floor, bring this level of thought leadership and expertise to you. And really, let's look at how technology can improve that overall experience, not just for the people working in our organizations, but for trading partners and for those customers that we serve. I think that will ultimately make our year a really worthwhile and purposeful year together. So thank you again. If you like this video, you want to see more of it, subscribe. And we'll see you at barcoding.com. Thank you, legends. Appreciate you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.